What's going on, guys? Doc Danny here. I want to thank you so much for listening to the PT Entrepreneur Podcast. One of the most common questions that I get is, how did you start a practice in a gym? And because of that, I've put together a course called the Gym PT Blueprint, which shows you exactly how to start, run, and grow a successful practice in a gym. If you're a new PT, if you're a new grad, if you're a PT that's just started a practice in the gym, you're not making more than $12,000 a month yet, this course is perfect for you. It'll teach you how to set it up correctly. It'll teach you how to market yourself correctly, how to sell correctly, how to actually build a true business and not just a little side business that maybe doesn't take you anywhere and change you and your family's life long term. So if you're interested in this model of a practice, guys, head to drdannymate.com/products and you can take a look at the Gym PT Blueprint and everything that goes into it at that location. Thanks so much for listening.
So here's the question. How do physical therapists like us, who don't want to see 30 patients a day, who don't want to work home health, and have real student loans, create a career and life for ourselves that we've always dreamed about? This is the question, and this podcast is the answer. My name's Danny Mate, and welcome to the PT Entrepreneur Podcast. What's going on, guys? Doc Danny here with the PT Entrepreneur Podcast. And today I'm getting into a topic that I've had a few people reach out to me about at this point and ask me to talk about this. And it's the idea or the business of a side hustle PT practice or side hustle PT business. And I really like this idea of these side hustle practices. So it's something that you do not as your full-time gig. Maybe you don't want to leave your clinic. Maybe you like the benefits and a paycheck and all the safe things that come along with being employed by somebody else. There's nothing wrong with that. But maybe there's some things that you're just not able to do in that clinic, and or you have a shitload of student loans and you would like to pay those off faster, right? That's probably many of you. Most of my friends coming out of school are somewhere in the range of, like 60 on the low end to 120 grand in student loans. I've heard of more, depending on if they're out of state. It's a lot of money. And it can take a really long time to pay that off. So these side hustle practices exclusively to really start to pay this stuff down can be really effective. In particular, if you start looking at this as sort of like Dave Ramsey recommends with the debt snowball, where you're kind of taking this and creating a game out of it. How fast can I pay this down, right? How much money can I throw at this debt in order to get rid of it as quickly as possible and then free up cash flow from that you would be paying normally. And now you can put that towards other things, whether that be other debts, a house, saving for something, whatever it might be. But if you need some extra income and you don't necessarily want to go do home health or, travel PT or PRN work or whatever it is, then a side hustle business can be a really good option. So I'm going to go over a couple of these with you. So number one, from the standpoint of, can you see people on the side? And I recommend that if you're going to do a side practice, it's a cash-based practice. There's a lot of hoops you have to jump through with insurance for you to see, a handful of people each week. It's not worth it, in my opinion. And I'm obviously biased because I have a cash practice myself, but that's what I think. And when you look at this, though, you may be working for somebody to the point where they have contracts with insurance companies. And what you need to look at is, does that insurance company have a contract with you through your NPI number, or is it through your clinic through their NPI number? Now, this is my understanding based on a conversation that I had with an attorney friend of mine who I asked about this specifically, and this was his response. Well, if it's through the NPI number of the clinic, then it's not a contract with you, so you are not contracted to see people for a certain rate if you see them on the side and a business not associated with that local practice you work for. Okay. If your NPI number is listed under the contract, then what you need to do is see if your employer is willing to take your NPI number off of there. Okay. And this may be state to state. This is in Georgia, the person that I was talking to. So if that's the case, then, ask them. And also, it's much better for you to be completely upfront and transparent with an employer if you are thinking about doing something on the side, because you don't want them to kind of find out about something and think, oh, why are you holding back from me? Why are you hiding this? What are you trying to steal my clients? Do you have a non-disclosure with them? Do you have some sort of a non-compete or non-solicitation that you signed? Now they're going to get all pissed off and try to figure out what the heck you're doing versus, hey, I'm not getting an opportunity to see this group of people that I really like to work with, and I want to try to see these folks on the side. And I'm not planning on taking any patients or anything from this setting. These are people that are going to be slightly separate to that, right? So transparency and you going up the chain of command the correct way is going to be your best bet with something like this. The other thing that you have to look at is does what you are trying to do fall under something that's considered physical therapy? Because there's plenty of side businesses that we can do that are not technically physical therapy. And I'll get into some of that in terms of, what options that you have, right? So let's talk about one that's real simple. And that is, let's say you want to see people on the side as a physical therapist in a gym. This is my wheelhouse, right? I started doing this when I was in the Army, before I got out, to open my practice. So just like I recommended you let your chain of command know, your employer know, I let my chain of command know in the Army what I was doing. So I had opened a little practice, a little cash practice on the side. I was seeing people after work some days in this CrossFit gym up in North Columbus, Georgia, right? So I just honestly just wanted to get some reps in this cash model. And I didn't have much of an issue with this because I was working for the government. So it's not like many of the people that I saw or any of the people that I saw could come and see me. The one thing I had to be aware of was if that person was active duty or a dependent, I couldn't see them. I couldn't charge them for a service that they could technically come and see me for on base. So I could only work with people that were non-active duty or dependents. So, but that also made the conversation very easy for me because they couldn't come see me anyway because I worked on a military base. So, you want to see me? This is my skill set. This is what my time is worth. Cool. So, within, I'd say a month, I had that little practice up to where I was seeing probably about 5 people a week, so maybe 20 visits in the month, right? But hey, 20 visits at $150, a visit is pretty good. That's $3,000 extra that I was making, working 20 hours a month, doing some stuff that I really liked with a group of people that I really liked, and getting a full hour with people, which I didn't get a chance to have when I was in my military clinic. So I actually really enjoyed it, and it wasn't like I was taking a ton of time away from my family or anything at home. So this model, I think, is very, very very doable for many people, and the overhead, the startup is very, very low. The risk is very low, very low, very low, low. It's your mortgage and you paying for your food every month is dependent on this little side business that you start. And if that's something you're interested in, your best bet is to take a look at the Gym PT blueprint that I put together. It's totally applicable to that situation in particular. And really, any of these side businesses, it would fall into a category where you get basically information on exactly what you need to do to set that sort of a cash practice up from the get-go, and understand how to market and sell yourself really well to where you're not just sitting there and nobody's coming in your office. But that's an easy example of somebody, if you like to be in a gym, if you have good relationships with people in a gym, you already have people asking you. This happens a lot. People are like, oh, can you help me with this? I know you're a PT. Can you do this and that? But make sure you do it the right way. Make sure you understand if your NPI is covered by that insurance entity contract, or is the clinic's and not yours specifically. Okay, so make sure you talk to your employer about that and try to figure that out. Now, here's the other thing that I was kind of alluding to this in regards to many things that we can do. It's not necessarily considered physical therapy. Right. So I was a personal trainer before I went to physical therapy school. And I was a personal trainer at this golf retirement community here in Georgia that's really kind of affluent golf retirement community. And, much of what I did, honestly was just help people move a little bit better, get a little bit stronger and a little more conditioned so they could walk around the golf course and they could hit a tennis ball a little bit better, and not feel so winded running around playing doubles tennis, whatever, with their friends. But that is not specific to a personal trainer or strength coach or whatever. The skill set that many of us have as physical therapists that are also have a background in training and or sport yourself, right? You're an athlete or you've worked with athletes. You have a background in strength and conditioning, exercise science, whatever it might be, personal training. There's nothing to say that you can't work with people in that capacity and not have to do any sort of hands-on work with them and train them, right? So for many people, you just need to set the parameters up where they know what they need to do, that you have accountability from somebody, and they have somebody that can really, really dial in their movement patterns that are deficient and give them programming going forward and train them to achieve their physical goals, And if your goal is, hey, I want to be able to play tennis without, feeling like I'm going to puke and not having my back sore afterward, cool, man. That is not physical therapy, in my opinion. I could punt that to a personal trainer, problem solved. Or maybe that's your wheelhouse. Maybe you played tennis in college. Maybe you're a freaking stud and you can also help them with their swing. What kind of a freaking package is that? What kind of skill set and unique skill set is that? Are you kidding me? You could charge just as much as somebody that's doing cash physical therapy and have no conversation whatsoever about, am I going to get reimbursed for this? How awesome is that? It's frustrating as hell sometimes when what you do is so valuable to these people, but because you're associating yourself with physical therapy, they assume that it's a $20 copay only versus a personal trainer. They know they're not going to have their insurance cover it. All of a sudden, them charging $100 to $150 an hour, it's a no-brainer if that person is legit and has a really good kind of word-of-mouth presence and a pedigree that goes along with it where they've gotten really good results for people. So think of it in these terms as well. What can you do besides physical therapy that really blends the skill set that you've learned, all the biomechanics that the anatomy, physiology, the programming, the progressions, regressions of exercises, the movement understanding that is bar none better than 99% of trainers out there. And you can utilize that in a way to leverage yourself into a side business that is much more strength and conditioning, kind of sports performance based, and much less about this conversation of physical therapy. This is an example of maybe these are people that you work with in your clinic and you get them feeling better. They're ready to be discharged. And then boom, hey, you know what? I do training on the side. Is this something that you may be interested in doing? This is how I do it. This is what it costs. Your clinic knows about this. This is something that you do that's not competing with them. And now all of a sudden you have a cash service that you can do on the side that can generate a lot of money for you as a side business. So there's a couple kind of niches that would be really effective for this. And before we do that, I want to actually kind of go over this little exercise with you guys to get you to give you an understanding of how you can decide if a niche is actually worth your time. If it's worth you putting all this effort behind to develop a side hustle practice, side hustle training business, whatever it might be. So what I want you to do is get a piece of paper and you're going to draw 3 circles that are intersecting, right? So basically they're all kind of like running into each other and there's some gray area there in the middle. And we're going to make your niche. So the top one, I want you to write like, all right? In that circle, write like. In the bottom right circle, I want you to write will pay. In the bottom left circle, I want you to write can help. Now, if you have a niche that you like, that you can help people in, and that people will pay for, now all of a sudden, you have a viable option for a side hustle business and eventually maybe a fully fledged, that's all you do business, right? And many of these side hustle businesses, they get so popular, they turn into, this is my full-time gig. Man, I'm getting so busy with this. I gotta let the other stuff go. I gotta focus on this. So here's where people can get in trouble. It's stuff that, hey, I like, let's say triathlons. They'll pay for it. I know nothing about triathlons. I can't help. So that niche is not right for you. You are not going to be helpful to somebody if you do not understand the intricacies of triathlon training. And if you haven't done it yourself, it's going to be very hard for you to relate to somebody. And they're going to be able to see that really quickly. When they start talking to you about a transition and you don't know what it is, they're going to think, well, this person's obviously never done and or learned anything about triathlons. So what about this? What if it's, hey, I like working with, underprivileged families. I can help them, but they can't pay for it. So in that case, you may love that. You may get a lot of personal satisfaction out of it. But if you're trying to work with somebody that can't pay you for your services, that niche is not going to work for you. It's just not going to be very successful. Okay. So here's a couple examples of some niches that have been proven to be successful and viable options. So, hey, CrossFit. I work with CrossFitters all the time. As much as we try to stop them from getting hurt, there's injuries that happen in that sport. There's injuries that happen in running, lots of them. You can try to get somebody's technique as clean as possible. If they sit all day in an office and they have tight as shit hips and they decide they want to do marathon and half marathon training, it's just a matter of time before they probably wear something down. They probably tweak something, right? So that's a good example of a niche. Running. Running is a great niche. A huge number of people run. And if you know anything about runners, when they can't run, they're unhappy. They're borderline depressed. It's like movement meditation for them, right? So, do you like it? Yes, I like to run. I've run in the past. I'm a current runner. I'm running whatever marathons, and I ran in college maybe, or I ran in high school, and I can help them because I understand it. I know the programming side of things. I know the strength and conditioning side of things. Will they pay for it? Sure. There are people that will pay out of pocket for a service like that. What about other specific endurance sports? We talked about triathlons. Maybe you're big into cycling. Maybe you love cycling. That's all you want to do. You just sit on your bike and you cycle your ass off every weekend, and you got a group of people that love cycling that you work with, and they're all busted up because they're a bunch of attorneys that sit all day long, and then they get on a bike and they ride 50 to 100 miles on the weekend in a shit position that's not designed for a human to be in for a long time, right? I mean, it's just, the human body didn't come out riding a bike, right? Came out walking upright. So that position can be really taxing on the body. And if you know anything about cyclists, it's sort of an expensive sport to get into. And they're just like runners. If they're not cycling, they're unhappy, right? We work with a lot of cyclists where our clinic is in Decatur. And that's an example of maybe you help them get fit for their bike, right? Maybe you can do bike fittings, you can do programming and training with them that has nothing to do with you sticking needles in their leg and their back. It's completely separate from any sort of personal or physical therapy that you might do with them. But now we're in this injury prevention, human performance realm, which you just like 100% fit really well into, right? What about tennis? How many people do you know that are just bananas about tennis, right? In Atlanta, there's tennis players everywhere. I'm sure it's like this in many, warmer climates as well. And tennis players, again, there's sort of a barrier to entry there. It's sort of more of an affluent sport. It's kind of this country club sport, right? And there's a social component to it as well. So do you like tennis? Yeah, you love tennis. Awesome. Maybe you used to play tennis. You still do. Can you help them? Sure. I know a lot about tennis swing. I know how to program for overhead athletes. Will they pay? Yep. Cool. Good niche. That's something that you can get a viable side practice with, side business with, where people are going to pay you for your services and see value in it. Now, what about golf? Hell yeah, golf. Dude, I'm telling you, I was a butthead 20-year-old selling big, I'm talking $4,000 to $5,000 packages as a personal trainer for, 6 months of working with me to golfers like nothing. Nothing. Because this is a golf retirement community, and if they couldn't walk around the golf course, they couldn't swing a golf club, they were unhappy because all their buddies are out there golfing. And it was simple, too. I remember just getting people's legs stronger, and they were astounded about how much easier they could walk up a hill to the putting green, right? So you get it to the green, you got to walk up a hill, and you're weak. All right, good luck with that. It's going to be hard for you to walk up a fairly steep hill, right? Your legs are getting a little bit stronger. All of a sudden, you notice, damn, I'm getting up this hill easier. I'm seeing some gains. That's value. People see value in that. If you continually tweak your lower back because your hips move like junk and you're just spinning through your spine, your lower back, instead of actually using your hips through the swing, well, you're going to have reoccurring lower back issues. And I don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure out that you probably need to do some mobility work and gain some anti-rotational strength in your trunk. And if you do that, you're going to feel better, you're going to hit the ball further. Golf is an easy one that people will pay for. It's a no-brainer. Golf, tennis, CrossFit, triathlons, endurance sports, and one other one that I like a lot is youth sports development. So it depends on the area that you're in. If there's a lot of youth athletes in that area, it can be a really viable niche for you to start doing some work in. One of our clinics, we see a lot of youth athletes out of this clinic, mainly soccer, lacrosse. We see some swimmers and some runners, some endurance athletes, a lot of soccer players though, a lot of lacrosse. And in many cases, what parents are not willing to pay for themselves, if it's for their kid, it is just a whole different conversation. I mean, every parent thinks their kids are going to get a college scholarship and go to the Olympics, for the most part, right? And it's their kid, right? So they're pulling for them. They got their best intentions. And I've had plenty of parents that have paid us the cost of a visit at my practice just for me to make their kid feel like they're going to puke. I literally had a parent tell me like, hey, I want you to push him really hard, borderline puke. Like, okay, well, we're going to mix in some things he actually needs to do, but we're going to finish with something that's going to make him feel like he's going to puke himself, right? And they're happy, the kid's happy, feels like he did something really hard, but we're really just helping him move better. We're helping him develop really good landing mechanics and change of direction mechanics and a good squat pattern, a good pull pattern, understanding how to use their body as they're going through these big growth spurts. And they sit all day, right? These kids just sit all day at school. They sit all day on an iPad or on their phone, so there's a lot of inherent mobility issues associated with that. But maybe you want to work with a team. Maybe you used to play soccer in college. Maybe you still really like being around that. But you got this kind of unique skill set where you can go out there, you can educate them on, hey, here's how you actually do a warm-up. I'm going to put this program together for you guys, and we're going to do a strength and conditioning program a couple days a week. We're going to meet at this time, 100% cash, side business, working with people that you really like that may develop into more and more of what you want to do and not just a little side business as well. Okay? So what you got to think about is, do I like it? Can I help them? And will they pay for it? And if they will, and if you fit all three of those things, you now have a potential viable niche that you can start to leverage yourself into. And the easiest ways to leverage yourself is digital content, period. Right? There's really two paths that you can take. It can be digital content. It can be in-person workshops. Those are really the two primary ways for you to get in front of a kind of niche community. And if you can do both, even better. So pick what you really want to work with. Start writing blogs about it. Start doing videos about it. Start putting that stuff out on social media in front of the right people, and be consistent with it. And then start trying to get in front of those groups face to face. Teach them something. Show them that you know more than the average person. That you're passionate about it, and that you're willing to help, but also that you're valuable and that your skill set is valuable. Distinguish yourself from the $20 per hour copay, and set yourself up in a little side hustle business that helps you pay your student loans off, maybe helps you pay for some sweet ass vacations. Maybe, hey, you want to take your spouse to Lake Como. You guys want to go chill up in northern Italy for a week. Awesome. Side hustle business. Thanks. Just got a vacation out of it. Or, maybe it's your saving for a house. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe you got a kid. Kids are expensive. Whatever it is, maybe you're just bored at work and you want to do more of what you enjoy. This is a really good way to go about doing it. Springboard yourself into a sort of side practice, side, hustle business, whether it's training or actual physical therapy. It could be either one, but it's a good way for you to start developing an extra revenue stream and distinguishing yourself from the average PT, right? So guys, if you have questions about this little side hustle setup, if you're interested in setting up a cash practice, sort of similar to what we did or what I did when I was in the Army, out of a gym, learning how to market and sell in particular, take a look at the Gym PT Blueprint. It's on our website, drdannymatta.com, DRDANNYMATTA.com. It's not Matta, it's Matte. We're the only people that pronounce it that way, but that's how you spell it. If you go to products, you can see what the Gym PT Blueprint is, and it's how you set these suckers up. How do you set up a practice the right way, legally? How do you actually get in front of the right people and not just waste your time and be able to organize everything and reinvest in your business education somewhat in order to really have a successful practice from the get-go. All right. So guys, if you have any questions, you can shoot me an email directly at danny@athletespotential.com. It's the name of our practice. I respond to all emails. So if you send it to me, I'll respond to you. It's simple as that. I appreciate you reaching out to me, and I'll get back to you. So guys, thank you so much for listening to the PT Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Doc Danny Mattei. Thank you so much. And guys, keep listening. We got some great content coming up for you. And if you have any questions like this, got any topics you want me to go over, let me know. I'd love to hear from you.